And we are live. Hello and welcome to the Douding Thomas Monthly Recap for April of 2022. We are live and we are public on the YouTube channel, so I hope you'll be able to swing by and chat. The main reason that we are live in public is normally I do the Beyond a Doubt episode of the month as a public broadcast, but I'm not 100% sure who that's going to be, and it needs to be done sometime in the next 6 days. So I figure I'll just do this one live just for the giggles, and that way you'll at least get something, and it'll be great. Joining me as the Thomas to my doubting is co-producer Clifton Thomas. How you doing this evening?
I think I'm doing pretty well.
All right.
I'm feeling good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Feeling fine, feeling fit. Love it. Love it. Well, maybe. The other day, this is exciting news. I went to Great America with my daughter. That's not the exciting news. I do that every week these days.
All the time.
All the damn time. So, no, the other day I went to... I was trying... Wait a minute. What do you mean there's no card in the... What? What do you... Oh, is it... No... What? Weird. Okay, anyway. Sorry, I was just getting the backup going. No, so the other day I was at Great America with my daughter, and they've got this ride called the X-Flight. And X-Flight is a really cool roller coaster where they have side-mounted cars. So there's a rail in the middle, and then there's a car here and a car here. And then this thing it's called X-Flight, so that should give you an idea as to like what kind of experience you're in for. But you are flying like in these chairs, and it's really it's very Top Gun, with your legs hanging down, and it's very Top Gun. And they've got this one part where like you're going towards a building, and before you get to the building, it turns you to the side, and you fly sideways through the building, and then it keeps going. And you fly upside down underneath like a bar. It's really neat under like this huge frame. Anyway,
I'm sold. I want to go.
Where I'm going with this, you should. It's so much fun, and it's actually not that expensive. Like it used to be really expensive to get to Great America. These days, it's like $40 for the day. And if you go with me and my daughter, trust me, you will get up early, you will get there early, and you will have plenty of time to go on rides before the park gets full. Anyway, so X-Flight has row 4 of X-Flight is the fat guy row. And they actually they have a sign up that says row 4 has been modified to accommodate passengers that might otherwise not be able to be accommodated. It is straight up the fat guy row.
Airplane row on a real airplane.
It is straight up a fat guy row. So I always have to go on the fat guy row because, spoiler alert, I'm a fat guy. But this Saturday, normally when I go on the X-Flight, I can get it real close. Like you pull down the harness and there's like a little seatbelt thing that you have to click in, and I can get it real close to clicking in the seatbelt. But I always need that one final push from the attendant. And he'll walk over, give it a push, click it, and the fat man rides again. Anyway, this Saturday, I was able to click my own seatbelt.
Ooh.
It was so exciting. Like the rest of the park was like whatever, but I was able to click my own seatbelt. That was exciting to me.
Anyway, things to come.
I don't even know why I brought that up. But yeah. So that was fun.
Because I was feeling fit and fine.
Oh, right. Fit and fine. Right. So, and of course I asked you how you were doing and then made it all about me because that's how we do on the Benefit of the Doubt podcast.
I'm all about some self-deprecating humor, so you just have at it, my friend.
Yeah. So, I mean, here we are 10 days into May, just getting around to talking about April. It's been weird. Last week I podcasted like 3 nights in a row. It was really, really weird. My family did not like it, but the first one was on the All About Android podcast, which was a blast. I honestly think, like, objectively speaking, it was my best appearance on All About Android. So, I actually kind of... Oh, go ahead.
Definitely sounded like you guys were having a good time, for sure.
Yeah. I felt like I was really contributing to the conversation. Like, sometimes, and this is any podcast you go on, and sometimes the host has to like work you into the conversation.
Right.
Like, the two people, especially on a 3-person podcast, the two people just be back and forth and back and forth. And, it's up to the host to say, well, what do you think about that, Adam? And then,
Right.
you get to actually contribute. But in this particular case, I think we had a really good, 3-way conversation, which was really great. And I'm not saying that, I'm not saying that to say like the other appearances on All About Android were not good times. It's always a great time, but it's just like this time I felt like I really had a lot to contribute. So as opposed to the other times when I felt like, it's like, oh, we have a guest here, we should let him talk. you know,
It is always walking a tightrope when you're on,
yeah.
especially. I mean, you've been on the podcast before, but I don't think you've been on with Win before, have you?
No, she's new to the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
so it was
And so you're kind of feeling out the rhythm, and you don't
mm-hmm.
really have that cadence, and so yeah, like I said, it's kind of like walking a tightrope, and it could go one way or it could go the other, and yeah, it really is just finding those like inopportune times where you're not forcing yourself in, but also feeling like you're part of the conversation.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
definitely want to get Win onto this show too because she's
definitely.
awesome. And I love talking to developers just because they are a whole different kind of nerd than I am. They're the ones that can code, and she works on Trello, which I mean, I know you and I are both familiar with Trello, so
I use it. I
that's
use it every
pretty.
day.
I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind digging into that quite a bit. Like,
Yeah, definitely. Although I would not
so
consider myself I think I'm a Trello user, but there are there's a difference between me and then like I'm just on like a free account. I mean, there are Trello
yeah.
power
Oh yeah.
users that integrate it into everything and really, take advantage of what
Mm-hmm.
it's capable of. And I'm just kind of like I'm in like the kiddie pool, kicking my legs and putting my
I can
my
move a
waders on.
card over to here.
Whee!
Wee. Yeah, totally. And in inside baseball, benefit of a doubt, tried using Trello for a few months there, and I think Asana just turned out to be the better
It
platform
was a
for
better
like what I
fit.
wanted to do with it. Yeah, it's just for what I wanted to do with it. And if I wanted to pay for a Trello account, it might have actually worked a little bit better. But Asana gives you the calendar view for free. So, boom. Anyway, especially when it comes to like planning editorial stuff, I can see like Trello
Right.
is more of like a workflow type management
Mm-hmm.
tool, I think, whereas Asana can definitely be adapted to like an editorial publication type tool. So, or at
Yeah, I
least more
agree with
easily.
that.
That's just
It,
how I think.
it,
But we'll
I,
have to have Win on to tell
yeah.
us all about like why we're completely wrong about Trello and everybody should use it all the time ever.
We're actually
So
being
anyway,
it's not a sponsor,
nope,
but
nope. This podcast not brought to you by Trello. But yeah, so let's talk about the month that was, shall we? So there's two stories that we're going to hit the eject button on because you were here to talk about it, and that was the Moto Edge Plus review and the what was the Star Trek cruise, the Star Trek cruise. I couldn't find it in my list there. So no, the Star Trek cruise featuring Michael Fisher, which was a really great conversation. It was really nice. Honestly, it was kind of nice to talk to Michael about something that wasn't phones because he's obviously very passionate about Star Trek as well. And this is the part where I have to confess at the very beginning of the interview when he said they were driving towards the boat and he was looking out at the ship and saying, "There she is." I had no idea what the hell he was talking
oh, I did.
about. I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did. And then he like turned around and said, he had to explain to his Uber driver that it was from Wrath of Khan. I'm like, yeah, okay, I get that, but I had no idea what that
Because
was from.
the Enterprise had just been refitted,
Right. Right. No,
refitted.
I
I'm not.
I get it. I get the context. I just did not recognize the reference when he said it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this is, the Doubting Thomas Monthly Recap is our opportunity to provide additional context to some of the stories. And that was really the only additional context that I felt that story really needed is that I don't know as nearly as much about Star Trek as you and Michael, and that's
Oh
fine.
well. Michael knows much more than me. I'm just kind of maybe I'm in the middle,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I will say I just watched I just caught the last episode of Picard, Star Trek Picard, and then the
Yeah.
first episode of oh
Brave,
gosh, what's the
Strange New Worlds.
Strange New
I
Worlds,
almost said
yes.
I almost said Brave New Worlds. that's a different
That would be a
series.
very dark
Um,
Star
yeah,
Trek.
it would be a very different series. But anyway,
But I will say
um,
I enjoyed both. I'm really excited about Strange New Worlds, and we can get off the Star Trek topic. But it's kind of timely. That's a whole new series that's just launching, and normally about this time of the year is when I would be canceling my uh, my Paramount Plus account, to go back to it later. But now they've given more meat on the bone there, so I'm back for another month. Paramount Plus.
nice, well done, well done. No, so in terms of Strange New Worlds, I've reached a point where I don't. I'm gonna stop watching series week by week
Mm.
because I have no patience for that anymore. I really don't. Like, it's the TV kid in me was fine. The TV kid in me thought it was fine to wait for a week because that's what we had to do when we were kids. But now I'm just gonna wait till all the episodes drop and then binge it all in like 4 days, and I'm gonna be so much happier with the experience. I actually got irritated, CBS Paramount Plus. I was watching The Offer, which is the making of
Hmm.
The Godfather, and I thought it was all done. I thought they had dropped all the episodes because it was a limited series and they had like 4 episodes out. I'm like, oh, maybe it's 4 episodes. I didn't know. So I started watching it and I got to the point where they like stopped because there's no more episodes, and I'm like, God damn it. So I went and started watching Ozark, and I'll finish that, and then I'll
Oh,
go back to.
somebody at work told me I should today. Told me I should watch Ozark, and I think actually that's not the only person that said that. It looks really good, but it's just you know, I,
It's different. It's really different, and you see Jason Bateman in it, and you don't. It's a very Jason Bateman kind
yeah,
of role, but
that
at the same
right.
time, it's 100% Jason Bateman. So, what did you think about the Star Trek finale? Can I tell you my favorite part of the whole
From Picard.
series?
Picard.
Yeah, Picard. Yeah, sorry.
Um, I will say this here. I'll actually say this about because I saw somebody write this and I thought it is absolutely
Oh,
true.
there's a
I
typo in
first of all, I
here.
will
I
say
didn't even
I
see that.
really enjoyed most of the season. I thought some of it was felt a little milk toast, half done, sort of.
I did not need to sit through 8 hours of Picard's daddy issues. I'll be honest. But
Yeah,
anyway,
but the thing, but I started thinking about this, and in terms of like, I know what's going on more than some because I've been watching, especially Star Trek: The Next Generation, and then the films after that, and then
yeah.
but if you were watching Star Trek Picard season 2, and I don't know why you would, if you hadn't watched anything else, but if I mean, the things that they revealed, I mean, it would just without any context, they didn't like spend the time to tell the story, like the Wesley Crusher part, like. Why would Will Wheaton be there if you hadn't watched The Next Generation? He's just like a random guy, like, "Hi, I'm a traveler." It
Right.
just made no sense.
I think that actually you might be overthinking it because somebody watching that show, when he comes in and he's like, I'm a traveler and I want to recruit you to be a traveler, I don't think you really need any additional context of that. You know about that. Like, he kind of wrapped it up like,
Well, he
hey,
said
I
my
used
name
to be
used to
what.
be Wesley Crusher too. You're like,
Right. No,
what?
I
What is
get
that?
it. And that was
Yeah.
for the people that have no idea who he is. But like, I don't know. I think you might be overthinking that a little bit. I think his appearance was fine. And actually, I'll be totally honest, like seeing Whoopi Goldberg as Guinan and Will Wheaton as Wesley Crusher again was worth the 8 hours of Picard mommy
Oh,
issues.
I mean, the last
Um,
episode was total just fan service at its best.
Yes,
Um,
yes, and I very much enjoyed the fact, and it's funny because like a couple weeks ago they were talking about Picard season 3 and about how everybody was coming back, but not Will Wheaton,
right,
and
right.
like, and that must have been like killing him to like say, oh, I can't say
I know.
anything, but you know what, I'm beating all of them back, but
uh,
so no,
but
I
it's
thought
so
that
so
was delightful.
so what I was talking about and what I had read, and I think this is true, Star Trek Picard. That the title was Star Trek Picard is a series that could only exist on Paramount Plus. Like I don't
Probably.
think you could see it on like network TV
No.
because
No.
yeah, which is fine. Like and I'm glad that you know these extra I don't want to call them like extracurricular or net curricular networks, but the stuff that's outside of like mainstream CBS can exist because Paramount Plus exists.
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
it's basically, I mean, it's, I guess it's like the analog would be like cable programming to from CBS to like, it's the TBS to CBS main
Yeah.
network. You can run some of that stuff. So yeah, but I
Totally get
enjoyed it,
that.
and I'm looking forward to season 3. It was, I will
Yeah.
say though, very different than season 1.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, like the other thing I didn't like about it was when Q comes onto the scene, he's supposed to be this mischievous imp,
Right.
and there was a lot less of that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so like Picard spent most of his time with Q saying, "Why are you doing this? Why are you
Mm-hmm.
doing this?" And come on, Picard, did you not watch the series before? He never flat out tells you why he's doing things. You
Right.
always ask,
Exactly.
but he never tells you. So why are you wasting your time now? Just run through whatever maze he wants you to run through, and then he will give you the treat at the end. That's how
Right.
this works.
It's a
But
very,
like,
very good analogy.
he was just not, he was it just I just Q was not the mischievous little imp that he normally was. And I mean, I liked
Well, he was
seeing John
dying.
Delancey. I know, I liked seeing John Delancey as Q. And by the way, I'm not 100% sure he's dead. I don't think they'll ever bring him back, but in my mind, in the Star Trek universe, he's not dead yet.
Okay.
Because I mean, because the one dude didn't time travel with the rest of them, and he's like, interesting, and I'm like, oh yeah, he's not dead. Anyway,
Hmm.
but whatchamacallit, I liked the fact that he came back, and I actually liked the ultimate message of Q's appearance was one person being valuable is enough.
Right.
Like, this doesn't have to have cosmic implications. Maybe it can just have Picard implications. And I happen to like you. And to me, that's worth it. I like that message. I thought that was a great
It's
message.
it's just like he said in The Next Generation. He kind of thought of him as a beloved pet.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That was in like one of the early episodes too. Nice deep cut. Um, but anyway, what were we even talking
I don't
about?
know.
We
I
were
don't know.
talking about the Star Trek cruise. Did this all start with the Star Trek cruise? I mean, we're a quarter done with the show, and I don't even think that we've touched on a single topic that we were supposed to, but that's okay. Because, I mean, this can be about random crap. And you know what? Star Trek Picard aired all through the month of April, so
That's right.
I say it's free reign. And
And
also,
Doubting
it's my
Thomas is where we let our hair down.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
And also it's our show. We can do whatever we goddamn well want. So strap in, kids. We're going for a ride. Anyway, okay, so let's why don't we picked out a couple of smaller stories from the month that needed a little additional context, but
Sure.
why don't we go ahead and clear out the big stories first? The first of which was the OnePlus 10 Pro 5G review with Nick Gray. I almost said Nick Sutrick, and it would have been so terrible. Nick Gray from Fandroid. Get all your Android news from fandroid.com, with a PH, by the way. So you did not get the OnePlus 10 Pro.
I did not.
Strangely enough, I mean, that seems to be the one phone that eluded your wallet this year.
I think I said on the podcast, in the last year or so, that I'm just kind of out on OnePlus right now. And it's not to say
Yeah.
that at least as far as the OnePlus models that exist in, for the North American market, it's like they don't really offer me anything that tempts me versus like a Samsung or a Pixel. That's just kind of how I feel about it. Like the things that I, as
Okay.
a former hardcore OnePlus customer, just aren't there. I guess. And that's
You,
not to say that, because I don't think the OnePlus 10 granted I haven't used it, but it seems like a perfectly nice phone.
it is a perfectly nice phone. And you want to hear the perfect metaphor for the OnePlus 10 Pro? So on my shelves here next to my desk, I have a basket filled with old phones that I've reviewed and
Mm.
I've completed my reviews for. And while you were talking just now, I was kind of like rooting through the basket looking for the OnePlus 10 Pro among the sea of other phones that are in here, and I
Mm-hmm.
can't find it.
Uh-oh.
And I mean, that is the perfect metaphor for the OnePlus 10 Pro. It's you know what?
Yeah.
I don't know if you recall this, but like back in my early days of like tech commentary, I came up with the hashtag YAP, YAAP, yet another Android phone.
I did
The
not, but
OnePlus 10 Pro is yet another Android
it
phone.
is.
Although, actually, in this case, it could be called a YAF because it's yet another Android flagship, as opposed to just
Yep.
like, yeah, a YAF is what we're going with. Oh, wait, I found it. It wasn't in that basket. That's why. That's why I couldn't find it. So, yeah, so I've got the sandstone cover on it still. I know
Nike.
Nick was really enjoying the camera, like the pseudo camera cover that came with it. It's too slippery for me. Like this actually gives
Mm.
it some grip, so it doesn't. Like I legit almost dropped this phone several times because of how slippery that case was. Um, but did you have any questions about the OnePlus 10 Pro? Granted, this is like 4 phones ago for me, so if you, I was just curious. Like, is there anything that we didn't cover in the review that maybe you might have
Here's
additional
here's a good
questions
question, I
about?
think. Okay.
Okay.
So, say you were traveling, for digital trends again, like you did like a month ago,
Yep.
and you had the Pixel 6, the S22 Ultra, and the OnePlus 10. Um,
Okay.
would there be a reason for you to pick the OnePlus 10 over those others as a phone for you to travel with, outside
Hmm.
of the quick charging?
Oh no. I mean, okay, so the OnePlus 10 Pro is still the only phone that I can see the 120 hertz on, and I don't know why that
Mm,
is. It's got to be something about the software. I think it's just the way they implement their animations in the
mm-hmm.
OnePlus 10 Pro that makes it a little bit smoother than, like, I think a lot of manufacturers, when they're doing animations, they just want to get the animations out of the way as fast as possible.
Right.
Like, zoop, there you go. And as opposed to, like, I think OnePlus is very deliberate about their animations so that you can see how smooth they are. So, like, when I move my hand up and down like this, you can see how smooth it is. But if I just go like, zoop, you can't
Yeah.
really see that. It's fast, which is great, but as opposed to like just a very smooth and flowy kind of motion. This is a terrible metaphor, especially for people listening to this
Especially
podcast.
with your
So,
blurry hand. No, I'm just kidding.
right, the hand that keeps coming in and out of blurriness.
Well,
But
which is it's funny that you
yeah.
say that though, because I've heard at least one other person hypothesize that the reason that um, with Oxygen OS pre the Color OS rendition of it, the reason that it felt so fast is because they didn't use as many frames in the
Hmm.
animations. Now that was completely conjecture, but it's just funny that you're basically saying the exact opposite, that they're
I
actually
think I'm
adding an
saying the exact
additional.
opposite. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's like especially the part where I see it most is in the notification shade. When I'm pulling down the notification shade, I really see that I'm moving it as opposed to just like I pull it down just a little bit and it kind of shoots down to the bottom. And I think that is why I see it there, and I don't see it with any other phone because I don't think any other phone manufacturer goes into that much detail. Like the only other phone manufacturer that I think would ever go into that much detail would be like Google. Like
Or if like Apple did, or if Apple did an Android phone, honestly.
or yeah, if Apple did an Android phone. But I mean like even on the iPhone 13 Pro though, I don't see the 120 hertz animation.
Oh,
But then again, with Apple, there's no notification shade at all. So
right. Yeah, you're
I
not
don't know.
dropping
I
into it
don't
in that
know.
same way.
I just can't put my finger on it. But again, and still, I don't care. But I can see it, and so like. By the way, I'm kidding with the subtitle here. The OnePlus 10. No, it's fine.
Right.
But no, it's a fine phone, like you said. But I think it's like yet another Android flagship. There's nothing that really makes it
Right.
stand out, except for that incredibly fast charging, which is, I gotta admit, I did not realize how nice that was at the beginning, but it is nice. It is,
So this is yeah,
yeah.
it is really nice. I agree. I mean, I've only had the 65-watt charging, but it was very
That's all
nice.
this has.
Oh, that's right. That's right because it's outside of the U.S. that it has the
Right,
higher
80.
spec.
Yeah.
It is a game changer if you're not used to it, especially if you come from like something like a Moto G where all you're stuck with like 15-watt
18
charging or
watts, or
20.
yeah.
Right. Um, I've just been thinking what frustrates me right now about OnePlus, and I won't go on a long tangent about this, but you have Realme, which I think we both said kind of basically is what OnePlus used to be, and then you have Oppo, who I guess maybe takes that upper premium tier, maybe
Mm-hmm.
just that one. I mean, they do also have mid range and lower priced phones, but what I don't get is right like Oppo also partners with Hasselblad, and it seems like Oppo just gets all the camera love. I mean, I hear
Mm.
I hear so much praise from people who have used them with the Find series, especially the 3 and 5, of how great their cameras are. And I mean, I'm not saying that the camera on the OnePlus 10 Pro is bad. I mean, I haven't used it, but I've also not heard like effusive praise like I have with Oppo's. And I'm just like, why does OnePlus exist? I mean, maybe in the United States, just
To bring a phone to the American market.
I mean, sure. I mean, that's about.
Yeah.
That's kind of a sad reason.
It is. It definitely is. But yeah, you're right. There's, and the same thing came up with the OnePlus Nord N20 that I did. The question that
Yeah.
I asked was, "Where's the OnePlus?"
Hmm.
There's not a lot of OnePlus character in these phones, except for like the fast and smooth, I guess, if you want to call it that. But I don't know. It's just, yeah, it's just it's hard to pin down, except that OnePlus is now kind of a relatively forgettable brand. Like
Well, at
there's
least with
nothing really
right,
that stands out about it except for the charging.
right. At least with 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 I'm sorry, with the Nord N20 5G exclusive to T-Mobile until sometime later this year.
Yeah.
That's for our
Excuse me.
market. I mean, I feel like that phone at least offers a visual identity that's different, even if it does borrow from other
Sure.
manufacturers with some of the elements, but it all comes together into something that I feel like is pretty distinctive. And then it does offer you a lot of value as long as you don't need a great camera, because I mean, essentially the same hardware is in the Moto G Stylus 5G, the 2022 version that was just released. That same 695 processor. It does have 2 gigabytes more of RAM, but it's $500
Right.
versus
Right.
what
282 on
right,
T-Mobile for the,
exactly.
yeah.
And I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
that's a whole different conversation about Moto's pricing and things like that too being ridiculous. But just
Right.
goes to show you, like, I mean, for what you get, it seems like the N20 actually to me that phone to me is a more appealing phone than the One Plus 10 Pro for what it is. Like if
Sure.
I could see myself actually buying that phone if I was in the market for a phone in about that price range. Anyway,
Yeah. Anyway, so I mean, it's fine. Like I said, it's a fine phone, and if you buy it, you'll be more than happy with it. It's just there's nothing really
right,
particularly stand out about it except for that charging. Like the charging
right.
is really the headline, which is kind of a boring headline to be honest. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
Another top story that we did this week was a show that I did. Speaking of the All About Android podcast, was a show that I did with Jason Howell. Now, this is actually a show that I recorded back in November. That it was part of the Behind the Curtain series,
Oh, okay.
and I think I've got one more of those left. So I actually need to start like figuring out what else to talk to
Well, you
people
had that in
about.
the can for a while.
I did. I did have that in the can for a while. And one of the things that we talked about, and the one impression that I got, like my biggest the biggest takeaway that I got from that was that podcasts, I hate to say this, are disposable content. Like you put out a podcast, and now there are certain exceptions to this rule, which I will talk about in a moment. But for a show like The Benefit of the Doubt, or like the All About Android podcast, or like most arguably of the podcasts that you listen to in this field that are very news based, they are disposable content. So you're going to listen to them once, you're going to move on, and you're not going to worry too much about what happened. Now, the exception to that rule in podcasts in general, and I won't say some tech podcasts do this, but not a lot. But the exception to that rule, two exceptions actually. One is the limited series podcast, which is a show about a given topic that takes 8 to 10 episodes to explore that topic. That's the kind of thing. I mean, that in and of itself is kind of a disposable content, because, chances are anybody's only ever going to listen to that once and move on.
Right.
But the other type of podcast, which is the elusive unicorn of the tech podcast world, which I would kill to have a podcast like this, but the Evergreen Podcast. And that's the type of podcast like Stuff You Should Know, like a new podcast that I just started listening to called Acquired, where and basically I think a lot of I've talked about Stuff You Should Know a lot, so I'll talk about Acquired in this particular case. Acquired is two financiers. I think one is an angel investor for startups, and the other one is like a venture capitalist or something like that. And basically, they're two, pretty cool guys. They're in their 10th season. And it's funny, I listened to, just for kicks, I went back and listened to the very first episode. It was the same two guys, but they were holding microphones. They didn't even have microphone stands. And like, this is all like pre-pandemic and everything. And then I've listened to shows since then, and they have vastly improved their quality of their content. But basically what they do is they take one acquisition from the business world and break it down. The history of the company leading up to the acquisition, what led to the acquisition, what steps were part of the acquisition, and like the overall effects of the acquisition. They give it a grade, like a score, like did it work, did it not work? And then they actually kind of hypothesize like what would have happened had the company not been acquired. So it's interesting, and sometimes it's very long-winded. I just listened to the DoorDash episode that was, I kid you not, 3 hours and 45 minutes long.
Holy crap.
And I put this podcast on when I was driving to Great America this past weekend, because, I'm like, oh, DoorDash, that's fun. I'll listen to that. I know DoorDash. And after we got to Great America, I stopped it and we went and did our thing. And then we got back in the car and I put it back on.
Like,
I was
3 hours
listening
left.
to it.
Oh, no.
Well, no. I had to drive from Great America, which is in Gurnee, Illinois. And if you look at a map, you'll see how ridiculously stupid this is. But we had one of my daughter's friends who lives in Rockford, Illinois, which from Gurnee is an hour and a half to Rockford. Where I have to like drive past my house to get to it, and then another 45 minutes back to my house. So all told, I was in the car for like 3 hours, and I just finished the episode like as I got back to my house. And I'm like, but we were like in Rockford, and I'm like, how the hell am I still listening about DoorDash? What's going on here? And that's when I looked at the runtime, and I'm like, holy crap, what am I doing? But no, so I listened.
Just as an aside,
yeah,
because I think we've talked before about how slowing it down podcast just to like even like 0.8, if you've got that scale where it starts at 1, makes everybody sound like they're drunk.
Yes, it's hilarious.
Have you ever? Because I listen to mine when I'm in the car at 1.2, and can I tell you how funny our music sounds at 1.2?
No.
It sounds like everybody's coked up.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And then for the benefit of the doubt, specifically where it has the old 80s dun 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 dun, the bongos sound like the guys, like it would look like a bird's wing, like a hummingbird. People make it so fast.
That's
so
awesome.
Silly.
No, I don't listen to I should listen to podcasts at 1.2. Honestly, for how often I listen to podcasts, I really should, just because I could make more out of my day. But no, I listen at standard speed. But no, so like evergreen podcasts are, I guess they're equally disposable in that you'll probably only listen to them once. But one of the nice things about an evergreen podcast is you can pick it up anytime you want, and it does
Mm.
not matter. Like, a podcast about the DoorDash acquisition, which by the way, I don't even think they got acquired. I think they made acquisitions. I don't, but anyway,
Oh,
a
that would make more
podcast about
sense.
a podcast about DoorDash is going to be just as relevant 5 years from now as it is today, as it was like 2 years ago, I think, when they first recorded it. So, I mean, like, that to me is like the unicorn of the podcasting world, is
Hmm.
to find good evergreen content that's interesting, that can be well researched, and that people will actually like get something out of.
You know
So
what's really great
I
about,
dig that.
yeah, I do too. What's also great about that from like the podcast producing side of it is that if for some reason you go on a hiatus, and I see this all the time with stuff you
Mm-hmm.
should know, and that there's just a whole series around that same, uh, I guess it's iHeartRadio, but all around that
You can
stuff you
front
should
load
know
your
series.
podcasts.
Right, exactly. You could just they'll just call it classic and play it, and for most people,
Oh,
it's probably still new to them.
Oh yeah, that too. That too. So yeah, you're talking about how you can, because Stuff You Should Know does the selects, which I never
Yes,
listen to.
yes,
I always skip past them. But yeah, so you can do like older episodes that are still relevant from like 4 or 5 years ago. There's a
right,
decent chance that someone listening to it hasn't heard it. Actually, for Stuff You Should Know, I probably
exactly.
have, but that's why I usually skip them. But yeah, you can do that. And where I thought you were going with it is you can front load your podcast. You can record, like,
Oh, yeah, that's true.
if your normal recording schedule is like maybe like, you record like 3 episodes a week, you could do like 4 episodes a week for a month, and then you have like a month worth of content that you can, or you have 2 weeks worth of content that you can put out for, while you go on vacation or something like that.
Right.
So, but
All
yeah,
right, you
you're
ready?
right. What? What are we doing?
The following is a
Oh,
special presentation of the
oh,
Benefit of
that
the Doubt
music.
podcast.
Okay.
It's so fast.
That is super fast. Wow, I didn't even think about it.
The
Okay.
stars like. Anyway.
Da, 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 da. Yeah. No, yeah,
It
totally.
just,
That is.
I'll be in my car listening to it. Yeah, sometimes I do even listen to stuff that I've been on just because I like hearing how the audio sounds. And it's
No,
just,
yeah,
it
yeah.
makes me chuckle every time I hear that sped up.
That's funny. That's good. That's good stuff. But anyway, so that was the one thing that I kind of took away from it. And if I'm a little bit honest, I've been tempted to kind of like not
Mm.
be so damn picky, because like I'm super picky. Like I will let things go every now and then, especially if I'm like in the QA listening phase of something. Like, the other day, it wasn't this week, it was the week before, I think. I said something that was blatantly wrong, and I thought about fixing it, and I'm like, screw it. People know what I'm talking about, you know?
Right.
So like, and I'll admit, like, this past episode with Miriam, with the OnePlus Nord N20, it was 46 minutes long, and I was tempted. Like, the full interview was 46 minutes long, and I was tempted to not do a cut interview because, like, for patrons, we do the full
Right.
interview and then we do the
Mhm.
cut interview. And I was tempted to not do a cut interview. I was tempted to just dump it and go, because it's Mother's Day weekend this weekend. Or it was Mother's Day weekend this weekend, and we had a house to clean. We had both of our moms coming over. It was crazy busy, and I had a hella week before that. So like, I just did not have time. And so I was tempted to just dump it and run and like hope for the best, basically. Honestly, for this podcast that we're recording now, it's supposed to come out tomorrow morning. I may just put these tracks together, dump it and run, and pray that everything sounds good. But we'll see. Like, so far, I think it's been okay.
Yeah.
There's
I will
been
tell
a
you,
couple
I
of,
did bump the mic stand accidentally at one point,
yeah,
but I don't think that's any
yeah.
big deal.
So
And there's
anyway,
something
I
to
mean,
say
like,
too. Like,
oh, go ahead. Yeah.
we'll leave that in too. And there's something to say to me for as a listener, sometimes it's interesting to hear. I mean, in the same way that it's interesting to watch, I'm sure for somebody that's watching this live to sort of see the naked, you know, non photoshopped, version of the cover of the magazine, so to speak. You're getting the raw deal. You're getting the, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. And I mean, and that's the other thing is these top stories that we do that publish to the YouTube channel are
right.
basically dumped and run. They're not edited.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have I don't do any editing for that. Like there may come a time, and we've talked about this off air, where we might record like 2 or 3 or 4 like tech
Yeah.
yaz or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. And probably something like that I will download and edit, just to edit for length, just to like cut out the various segments, because it might be easier than just starting up a new damn room every 20 minutes. But so I might do that. I don't know. But yeah, the stuff that you're seeing on YouTube is unedited. It is dump and run, basically.
Dope is such an attractive word.
It is. It really
I
is.
love it.
So I mean, it is like that. So it could turn out that we might get that more, but I don't know. I just, it's not that much of a problem to just listen through once. Like it's not
No.
that big of a deal. But I've had times when an hour-long podcast will take me like 4 hours to edit, just because like, you have to cut it and go back and make sure the cut sounds okay, and then let it play, and then hear something else and cut it and go back, and then and then sometimes you like lose your focus and you're like, what were we just talking about? What did I just miss for the last 5 minutes? You got to go back and listen to that. So
I think what makes it easier for Jason and that team over there is, well, there's two things, right? The first,
they
makes
have
it
producers,
harder because they have 3 people typically,
right? Well, that too.
but they have a
Yeah.
producer.
They have 2 producers.
So he's able to.
They have 2 producers.
Oh, they do. Wow.
Yeah, they've got shoot, I forgot their names. There's like 2 producers, and like the running joke is that they're both the same person, but they're not. But yeah, I don't remember what their names are though.
So a lot of that's not necessarily edited, but at least because to me, like, I think, even if I was going to do what you were discussing and just dump this in, I would and just let it go. I would still at least like go in and balance the audio, make sure that like one person's levels and stuff aren't higher than the other, and actually one thing I think we should do, whether this makes it to the podcast or not, I think we should run a low pass filter on the intro music, not for necessarily this, but for your regular podcast, for the regular benefit of the doubt.
You think it's basic? You think it's shrieky?
It's way too bassy.
Oh well, that would not be a low pass. That would be
a high pass filter then. Okay,
right. You think it's bassy? Is that like? Are you hearing that in the car?
It's not bad in my headphones, but in my car,
in your car,
the difference between the voice and the music is whoa. It's like it's not louder. It's just it about blows my speakers out, and I think I would probably just Huh. It's not that bad, but it's pretty bassy, and it's weird. I don't know if that could just be the tuning of my speakers in my car too. Like maybe
it could be. Well, you know what? I never listen to anything through my car speakers because I always have earbuds. Right. So yeah, I wouldn't know, but like you're right though. I mean, a good podcast producer should listen to their podcast in as many places as possible to get a sense as to how other people are listening to it. So if your intention was to call me out as being a bad producer, mission accomplished. No, I'm just messing with you.
No, but that is true. Like, I mean, but you don't drive in your car that much anymore, except to just like take your kids to school and stuff. And so,
right.
I get it. And I mean, honestly, I feel like,
I mean, I do drive to FedEx every now and then and send you stuff. Spoiler alert. Anyway,
very excited. But, I am excited.
No, it's fun. I think you're gonna like both of those things. So, coming soon to a tech near you.
Yeah.
But, all right. I mean, we're at 45 minutes.
I think we're good.
I think we could just call this one, right? Like, there was some stories that I wanted to talk about, and like, let's just do like a lightning round here. I think we had what 3 stories it was. So
Yeah.
the first one was the birth and death of CNN Plus because
That's
it
all I have to
happened
say about that.
in the same month. I mean, and you know, I legitimately feel bad for the people that worked on that
Oh, I
because
do
like they
too.
put just launching a podcast is like 4 weeks of work. You know, launching a TV show, a 24-hour TV service, like they hired new talent and like, oh man, I feel legitimately bad because that was a crap ton of work for zero return.
Absolutely, and I laugh, but I laugh because to me,
They
I thought
outpalmed
nothing could
palmed.
ever beat the Quibi like life cycle, and then they just smashed it with
They
CNN Plus.
outpalmed palm. I mean, it was crazy.
Golly.
All right, so what else? So Apple is letting reader apps like Kindle and Netflix and Spotify link to their own sites. This is only significant in that were if you were a brand new user to Kindle, Netflix, or Spotify, and let's just think about those 3 names for a minute. If you're a brand new user to Kindle, Netflix, and Spotify, welcome to Earth. And but now you can now Apple is allowing those services to link to their home website so you can actually create an account and not have to pay Apple the 30% Apple tax.
Right.
And that must have pissed Tim Sweeney off to no end. And just, you know, honestly, so the first mission statement on the Benefit of a Doubt podcast is Facebook is a crappy company run by terrible people. I think the second mission statement for the Benefit of a Doubt podcast is tracking all the different ways that Tim Sweeney gets pissed off. Because man, that guy is just woo. Anyway, and then finally, yeah, this was a big story from Wise about how there was a vulnerability in the Wise Cam, the one of the original Wise Cams, and actually the 2 follow-ups that came
Mm-hmm.
after it, where there was a security vulnerability that like, okay, and it's the same caveat, they have to be on your Wi-Fi, but they can like trigger their camera to start recording remotely and talk through it. And they knew about this for 3 years
3 years
and nobody
exactly.
did anything. The security company that found it didn't do anything. Wise didn't do anything. It was just a breakdown of colossal proportions. And like John Velasco, who I used to work with at Digital Trends before he moved over to spy.com, was a huge proponent of Wise cams because they were so cheap. They were 30
Yeah,
bucks. And
they're
like you could
decently good for what they are. They're not just cheap in
right,
terms
yeah,
of
they were
the quality of the video and services
totally
and yeah.
totally. So they were like super cheap and they were kind of decent. And he loved them. And damn, dude. So
Yeah.
um
It
I don't think there's really more that we need to say about those.
I will just say that, it really makes me think twice about buying any connected wise stuff. Like probably not like the smartwatch because I mean it's a different thing.
Yeah.
But something that's just like constantly connected, like as a home accessory, that's I mean, yes, you're behind my network, but still I mean, in terms of like
Yeah.
that security, but it's scary. And
It
just
is.
just
It
just the
really is.
fact that they just ignored it
They just
for
ignored
3
it.
years until they were called out on it. That's just
Yeah.
bad.
And we reviewed the Wise Watch on this podcast.
Hmm.
So, there's another potential vulnerability somewhere in
Right.
there maybe,
Right.
but yeah, just so I don't question constantly connected devices. What I do question are cheap
Right.
constantly connected
Right.
devices
Right.
because, if you're paying, $250 for a connected doorbell, that's going to be supported. That's
Right.
that's part
You
of the
hope.
cost of the device or the subscription, if there is one, is to support it. And actually, I think Wise Camera does have a subscription, which makes
They
this
do.
even ickier.
Hmm.
Anyway, so yeah, not cool. Wise, very very not cool. No cookie for you.
Well, as circling back real quick to to our first story, I will say specifically referring to Michael Fisher going on a Star Trek cruise.
Okay.
I mean, my main takeaway from that, because we kind of went off on a tangent and never really wrapped it up, but I mean, I just
Oh, we
want to
did.
go on
Yeah.
one. I mean, it just sounded
Yeah.
like so much fun for someone like me or you even. Like, I know you're not quite as big a Trekkie as I am, but
I still think I would enjoy something like
yeah,
that. My wife would hate every second of it, but I would enjoy it, to be totally honest.
right.
But I'm willing to make that sacrifice so that, I don't
Well,
drag
she
her
might like
along.
booze, and there's booze there, and that
She
could take care of
might.
a lot.
She might. It would depend on what kind of wine they had, I think.
Mm,
But yeah. But
something.
anyway,
She could try Romulan ale. That's really
she
just
could.
blue color dye in like a Shiraz. I don't know. Anyway, a Chardonnay. That's better. That feels more
Did
wifey.
I interrupt your thought, or did you finish your thought, or?
No, that's it.
Oh, that was it. Okay.
Hmm.
So, okay, I thought there was going to be
Oh,
more of a thing there, but that's okay.
you expect too
No,
much from me.
it was fun. I think that would be the type of thing that would be fun, but at the same time, like, Chicago had a Stargate convention for years and years and years, and I never went. Like, I don't do like nerd fandoms that much because
I
it's
don't
like,
either.
yes, I'm a very private nerd. I think what it boils down to is I don't necessarily need to revel in my
Yeah,
nerdiness like with thousands of other people. Like, I'm good. Like, I can be a nerd with you. I could be a nerd like at a even like a product launch or something like that. I can be a nerd among nerds there, definitely. But when it comes to like just celebrating that nerdinum, I don't know. I don't think that's really my vibe, honestly.
yeah. To me, like, I hate to say this because I think I'm kind of the same way. I never pictured myself being one of those, a convention guy, because to me, in my mind, I always put them in the same category as the people that like make their own armor for LARPing.
Right.
And it's like a cardboard box and like a cardboard
Right.
sword, and they're hitting people like
But I mean, that actually could be kind of fun too. Like,
but I
I
wouldn't be seen in public doing it.
no, I think it's like small doses fun. Like, I could
Yeah,
see
right.
like going to like a workshop for like a couple of hours and maybe like doing something like that, but I don't think I would like want to do it for an entire weekend. And by the way, I should also mention that I have within the last 18 months actively shopped for Stargate clothing, like
Yes.
patches to like put onto a black jacket to like replicate one of the Stargate uniforms from the show. I did do that, and I'm not ashamed of it because I needed a new jacket. And so I just figured that might be a fun little thing,
I
you
want to
know.
see oh gosh, I can't think of his name. But he is the co-host of the of Florence Ion's podcast, Material. And I'll tell you his name in just a second cuz he
Oh, yeah, yeah, I know who you're talking about.
yeah, we can just edit this part out here.
No, we can't. I'm dumping and running this. So you better just
Andy Anako, I believe is his
yeah, that's
name.
the
I
one.
actually just
Yep.
that just came off the top of my head there, but I believe
Good for you.
yeah. I remember him talking about this year going to, I think it was the opera, if I remember correctly, in New York. It might have
Okay.
been like the New York Metropolitan. Anyway,
And seeing
uh
someone dressed as a
and
Klingon?
no. So
No.
I guess the thing to do is when you go at, I think it's a New Year's thing, everybody dresses up in some sort of like, or a lot of people dress up in costume.
Oh, fun.
And
Okay.
so I haven't seen the pictures of it, but I want to go find this now. He was able to blend like a Mando costume. In fact, I think it was actually Boba Fett, but also made it look like a dapper, like tuxedo-ish kind of thing. And apparently, so you would see it, and you would, if you were a Star Wars fan, you would recognize that. Oh, he's a Mandalorian, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he also made it look fashionable. So apparently, that's possible. Um, so
Well, guess what I just found?
what's that?
Hang on. I did a Google image search. Give me a second. Let me see
Uh,
if I can share this, if I can remember how to
and
share
and while
this.
you're
But
doing that, I will say that part of it too is, and I think this is why you're kind of like me and going, well,
I think
maybe
it's
I
a,
would.
you know what? Let me, before I share this, I'm just going to make this window all by itself so that I don't share any like confidential tabs or anything. But bear
So I
with me
think
here.
once I hit like
Yeah.
40, I stopped caring so much. I've never been really someone that really cares about what people think of me that much anyway. But now I really
Okay.
don't care.
Is that the picture you're
Ah,
talking about?
there it is. Yes, that's pretty awesome.
So yeah, that is kind of impressive. And it's not blatantly Boba Fett either. Like,
Right, right. Just
there's the visor at the top, and I think the bracers kind of like sell it a little bit. But yeah, that's
that's
very not bad.
impressive.
Yeah.
And yeah, wow, my memory was pretty good. It was the Metropolitan Opera.
It was. Well done. Well done on that.
Sometimes I remember random things.
All right. So I'm gonna pop that down. But all right, great. That was great for the audio audience. I really appreciate you bringing that
They
up.
love that part.
But they
They love
did.
to see
They
it.
did. So, all right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap things up then. Even though we only talked about like half the stories we wanted to talk about, that's fine. We're an hour in, so it's time to go ahead and close things out. So, how do I normally end these things? I don't normally do the whole spiel, right? We just usually just say, thanks for listening and giving us the benefit of the doubt, right? That's all we do.
I think that's
I
right.
think. Cool. Well, I just did that. So, and oh, hey, Samuel, welcome. We're going to stop now. Uh, but no. So, yeah, that's going to do it for this episode of the Doubting Thomas Monthly Recap. And I promise you, I pledge right now, I'm going to take these audio files, dump them, and export them without listening to them. I mean, I'm going to add the music,
Nice.
obviously, but I am going to just end. I'm going to just dump it in. I'm going to have this edited and published within 10 minutes. So that is my benefit of a doubt pledge to you.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah. All right. So that's going to do it for this episode of a Doubting Thomas Monthly Recap. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for Cliff for coming on and chatting about it. And thanks in advance to Cliff for chatting with me at the end of the week about this week's top story, because I get the feeling our guest is going to have to bow out. So he's my standby. So I'll talk to you on Friday, Cliff. Anyway, but otherwise, thanks to everybody for listening. Thanks to Samuel for coming on and checking out the end of the show. And I want to thank everybody else who's listening to this unedited podcast for giving us the benefit of the doubt.